All right, so in this episode of Red Ink, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a surprising outlook on editors and why you are probably right. You don't need an editor, or you shouldn't hire an editor. And that's coming from an editor, folks. So get ready for this one. Right now, you've probably heard the trend that there is that editors are a scam. I've even seen some posts that said that editing is a scam, or that hiring an editor is a waste of money. And in today's day of AI, it might feel that way, but I'm going to assure you that that is not the case. However, on the flip side of this coin, I'm also going to tell you why you probably shouldn't hire an editor. There are reasons why you shouldn't. And so, so here's some real life confessions, guys. The first thing I need to admit to you, and if any editor does not admit this to you, it should be a red flag, but that is that I have made mistakes in the past. Like, I am not a perfect editor. I don't think that there is a perfect editor out there. I haven't met one, because there are many times where I'm doing a manuscript where I've come in behind multiple editors and I find many, many mistakes. And I'm sure the flip is also true. Like, people have come in behind me and found many mistakes. So it's just kind of the way that it happens. It's the nature of the beast. We are human. That being said, as I've continued to work in this industry for years, I find that my editing style is a lot more harsh in terms of like the grammar and the structure of a sentence and the way it's communicated than some others that might be a little more lax. And when you have an author who is an indie author, and they have their creative freedom to choose what to take and what to leave, then you also will find that even after a manuscript is edited and professionally edited, there will still be mistakes. And oftentimes it's because the author has chosen to keep those in there. So I want you to keep that in mind as we talk about this topic. But let me just kind of reiterate that there are times to hire an editor and there are times to not hire an editor. And anymore nowadays, I am very, very reluctant to recommend a developmental edit to a reader or to a writer. And that's because there are a lot of tools out there right now that are free and that are accessible that can help a writer really break down a story and kind of get those stories tuned in without having to pay 3.7 or more cents a word. And that is a lot of money. Publishing a book is not cheap. The average cost of publishing a book, and this is if you're not hiring me, but like in the industry as a whole, it can be anywhere from 15,000 on up to $129,000. That is a lot of money. So when you factor in that editing is a big chunk of that, it is a hard pill for a lot of authors to swallow, especially knowing that this is not a get rich kind of industry. So I'm going to often recommend that my authors use other tools that are available to them, or use a manuscript review where I can kind of come in and get that macro view of their manuscript and then give them those suggestions without actually getting my hands dirty and charging for a developmental edit. If an author has actually come to me lately for a developmental edit, a lot of times I'll ask them to just let me do the manuscript review, give them that report and that overview. And then sometimes if they need even more hands-on, we might just go in and do like 1 or 2 chapter kind of developmental edits. So I'm only charging for those words instead of the whole manuscript. It gives a lot more effective way to spend your money. Also, sometimes if it's even more detailed than that, if they need more help with the manuscript overall, like the big picture still needs a lot of work and they feel like they need that feedback, I will often recommend going to a book doctor like Troy Lambert, who I recommend for that, because it will give them that big picture and hands-on work without, of course, paying for that huge developmental edit, because developmental edits are just so expensive. So That aside, we're going to talk about copy editing, line editing. Copy editing and line editing in my head are the same. There are substantive edits, which kind of go into the category of developmental editing and those manuscript reviews, or there's the proofreading and or proofreading. Proofreading is that final polish that you put on that manuscript. And sometimes that can be done different ways, but I'll tell you about my process here in a second. Um, the reason that I'm bringing this up again is because a lot of times, like I said, I'm not recommending edits for authors at the time I'm getting a manuscript review because they're not ready, or they have huge goals that they have, and an editing contract is going to take a big chunk of that away from them. They're out of their budget. And so I will work with them on how to accomplish those goals while still getting a polished manuscript. Sorry about that. So, again, this is one of those situations where when you're working with a publishing coach like myself, or um, kind of like an author, business coach, we're going to be able to look at your whole project and give you advice based on that whole thing, as opposed to maybe you going directly to an editor who may say, well, I recommend that you do a developmental edit because I need to feed my family. As opposed to me, who's going to be like, okay, let's look at your goals and your objectives and make sure that we're going to achieve those in the most effective and cost effective way. So, I'm just going to kind of put that out there. Reasons you may not hire an editor. Are you ready for these? One, you're still drafting your manuscript. If you're still in the middle of figuring out where your manuscript is, if this is your first draft, you are not ready for an editor. You are not ready to hire somebody. It is totally cost ineffective to hire somebody professionally to read a manuscript when it is your first draft. Doesn't do you any good. It's a complete waste of time and money. So if it is your first draft, I recommend a couple other things you can do. One, you can go to beta readers, which are your friends, family, neighbors, English teachers, whatever, that can help you read your manuscript for free. They are often going to hopefully understand genre and books, but specifically, it's best if if you call on a beta reader that understands your genre, so that they understand what to expect from that book. And if you're, for example, if you're having your English teacher who is a big Jane Austen fan read your maybe mystery thriller, and they never have read mystery thrillers, or they're not interested in mystery thrillers, you might get some cross information that might not be good advice for you, because it ultimately won't serve your genre. So make sure that you're picking beta readers that understand and know your genre. Critique groups are also another great tool for you. They're free. You can go in there and you can talk to other authors who are hopefully familiar with your genre again, or with the writing process, or they can help you pick apart certain aspects of your book to kind of build character development or plot development. And that's also should be free. You shouldn't be paying for those things. There are also some other tools out there that are cheap or inexpensive, I should say. One of which that I've started recommending quite a bit is Pro Writing Aid's manuscript analysis. I think it's $35 a review at this point. And while it's not perfect and it is AI, I can vouch for Pro Writing Aid's wanting to keep your manuscript safe, but so they're not using it to feed general AI platforms, but you can use it to kind of help go through your manuscript and see if there's any issues or anything that the AI is picking up that you did not realize you were missing. And it's a really great way to kind of like see if things are working or not. And I've actually been utilizing those in my manuscript reviews to kind of help me as well catch things maybe that I missed. So it's actually been a really cool tool lately. And I'm sure that they're constantly developing and working on it to make it even better. But anyway, I've had some good results with that. So that's the first thing. The next thing is if you are self-editing, which is great, you're probably not going to be ready to hire an editor at this point. A lot of times, uh, I I'll get a manuscript and I will be certain that my author has not read that manuscript out loud. And because it just doesn't make sense. Now, keep in mind, writing is a different language than reading or like than speaking. So you're not going to, like, I'm not going to write a story, write a manuscript with the words that are coming out of my mouth in this YouTube video because it wouldn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. I have filler words. I have gaps in the way I'm saying things. And of course, when I'm going to put this on paper, it's going to look much more refined. However, when you read a manuscript out loud, it should still sound natural. It should still sound like your voice. So make sure that you're reading your manuscript out loud so you can understand and hear what you're saying so that you can see if it makes sense. Um, Another reason why you wouldn't hire an editor yet is because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know your goals. You don't know where you're going. You don't know your objectives. Um, when a lot of authors come to me and I have them fill out what I call an author canvas, which kind of gives me an overview of where their brain is at and how much they know and they don't know. And it really is telling because a lot of times authors, when they sit down with me with for their consultation, they go, I didn't even think about that yet. Like I didn't even realize that was a thing. So it's important to understand and know the direction that you're going. An editor is going to look at your manuscript differently if you were going to trad publish as opposed to if you were going to indie publish. So remember that you're hiring an editor for a specific purpose, and if you don't know what that purpose is, if you don't know why you're using them to help with this manuscript, then you're going to often end up in the wrong you're going to end up in the wrong destination or you're going to end up with the wrong results. And again, you don't want to waste this money. It's expensive to do an edit, and you want to make sure you're doing this the best way you know how. And then the next thing is you're unclear about structure. A lot of times people will think that they're ready for an editor because they had this great story and it's a great idea and it's a wonderful premise and they have this whole thing figured out in their head, but they actually never really studied or understood how to tell a story. They just feel like they instinctually know it, which I admitted earlier that I do. I understand and instinctually know it, but I will say that it was not until after I took many theory classes on literature that I understood and fully like comprehended the structure that I could pick up on. And now that I understand that, I can actually see where gaps are in my own writing because even as I have a great idea and I love this story, I can also go and sit down and analytically go, oh, wait, I'm missing a scene here. I'm missing a scene here. And I'm missing a scene here. And a lot of times authors don't understand that. So when I'm getting manuscripts, I will like point out, hey, you have the climax in the wrong place. Your inciting incident is too late. You're starting the story too late. You don't have a character arc that is being mirrored in the plot. There's a lot of things that I will point out and they'll be like, wait, I didn't even think about that. Like I didn't even realize that. Or I'll bring up things like Save the Cat writes a novel, or I'll bring up like 3 act structure or 5 act structure, and they don't understand what those are. They don't understand structure and storytelling. So this is true for not only fiction but also nonfiction. When you're writing a nonfiction, if you're writing any kind of like business book or self-help book, or even a book about finding your way and your financial journey, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're creating a character arc. The character arc is actually going to be the reader in those instances. So you still want to have a rise and a fall. You still want to have a climax, a build up, and you still want to have a solution, and you still got to have that resolution at the end. And that is all something that's part of that journey. So you have to understand structure when you go into an editing situation. And if you don't, if you're going and you're giving a manuscript without that, and then an editor tries to sit down and tries to teach you where things are going wrong, I have seen authors react very negatively to this. Like there have been some authors that I have worked with that have been very, very offended and hurt by my critiques, even though they were completely out of love. And I was very excited about the manuscript that we were about to embark on. I've even had authors come in, give me a manuscript, and I've loved it, given them some critiques on how we could really make this work. And they were so offended by what I had to say, they pulled their manuscript and just didn't want to hear what I had to say beyond that. And they took the manuscript and went somewhere else. And while not everybody is going to love me as an editor, I'm not everybody's editor, there's still going to be that willingness to understand and learn from people that you've hired. And there's a reason that people hire me, and there's a reason why I give my critiques the way I do. And I'm not doing it to harm you or to be mean. Like, believe it or not, I'm not being mean. I want to make this a successful manuscript. So I'm going to give you the critiques that you need so that you can make your manuscript great. Now, like I said, those are the reasons why you would not hire an editor. And again, I always recommend kind of like gauging your project and figuring out where you are in your journey so that you don't pick one, you don't get an editor too soon. There are ways that you can get away with not having an editor at all. Trust me, I know. I have friends. I can name off a few right now off the top of my head who never hire an editor, and they are very successful authors, very successful authors. However, very few of you are going to be in that camp. There are tools out there that you can have and use to polish your manuscript. Keep in mind that if you are using them, AI is not perfect. And if you don't understand certain literary rules or publishing rules, that those AIs aren't going to do a good job. And sometimes if you know this, because I mean, editors out there, you know this, if you're an editor, you know that there are multiple editing softwares that we've been using for eons. We've been using these for decades. So this is not new to us, but when we cross-reference those tools, they often contradict each other. And so we as editors have to know and distinguish between the stylistic rules that we want to apply to that manuscript when we're using those tools, because Grammarly will often contradict ProWriting Aid, and ProWriting Aid will contradict Perfected, and all these tools that are out there. So we need to make sure that we understand the differences in the rules and the style books and the syntax and the style choices of the author as we're applying our rules and editing those manuscripts. So that's something that is very much a human aspect of the editing process. So I will always recommend a human proofreader. Now, proofreading is just that final polish. It is that last eyeball check on your manuscript. And I have a multi-step process to this. So I always do a proofreading. I always recommend a proofreading before we even go into the publishing formatting stage. But there's also the proofing that goes on while formatting. There's also that pre-publishing stage where you get the PDF or you get the final manuscript and it's formatted like format, and you get to go through it and you will spot things. Sometimes there's a weird space. Period is actually made a comma and you need to make it a period. Things like that. So you'll see double thes sometimes will even pass the proofreading stage. So things like that you need to kind of like eyeball, and those are often sometimes even missed in a human process, but that is something you want to do. And then once the book is produced and it's uploaded, give yourself some time to get the physical proof in your hands before that book launches, before that book releases. So you can actually go through the physical copy of your book and see what might have slipped by. And I promise you, there's always something that slips. There's always something that slips. So keep that in mind, that's a multi-processed proofreading, polishing, get that diamond absolutely perfect and in its setting stage. And it is multifaceted. So this is kind of a long freaking video, but I want to just really briefly quick before I end it, remind you to like and subscribe if you like this kind of advice, or if you want more advice from this, go ahead and comment below and let me know what you want to hear from me. But before I finish up this video, I want to go ahead and give you like some reasons when and where and how you might go about hiring that editor. The first thing, when you're ready to hire an editor, your manuscript has been taken as far as it can possibly go with you. Like you've gone through the beta readers, you've gone through the critique groups, you've gone through all the stages of manuscript evaluations and so on, that you're just like, okay, I think this is as far as I could possibly go. That's when you want to get the professional involved. And again, hire an editor that is niche. There are too many editors that I meet in the world that are like, I can edit anything. And that is a complete, like, nope, red flag. If they say they can edit anything, there's a problem. There's a problem, because I know editors that should not be editing epic fantasy, and I know editors that should not be editing romance. I'm one of those. I don't edit romance. I laugh at sex scenes. I think they're hilarious. So I'm not the type of person you would hire for a romance novel. Do I have editors on my team that edit romance? Absolutely. So you can come to Print Pro, and I can put you in touch with one of those kinds of editors. But again, I'm not the editor personally that can edit your romance. So you got to remember, like, an editor that says they can edit everything, they probably can't. Actually, they should, most editors should be niched out into a specific type of book that they will edit. So remember that. Um, so if you read your manuscript and it's gotten as far as you can get it, then there you go. You're ready. You're probably ready for that professional. You're preparing for publication. Again, this is like you're getting ready to publish the book, or you're preparing to get that thing into an agent's hands, or you're querying publishers and they are ready to take it. Keep in mind that when you're submitting to a trad, they don't want to have a lot of work. So you want to make sure, even though they're going to have an in-house editor and they're going to have somebody that's probably going to edit the crap out of it, you still want to make sure that you have that thing as far and as polished as you possibly can, because they don't want to work on a book and put a lot of work into it. They want to know that that thing is pretty much dialed in. So if you're hiring a freelance editor to help you get the book ready for a pub submission, or to a publisher house submission or an agent submission, then that's when you would hire an editor. But make sure that they understand that that is what they are doing. Okay. So, because again, it's a different lens. Um, if you need a professional to help you with clarity, or if you need someone to help you like tune in your book, that's another reason why you might bring in an editor. And a lot of times, like I said, I do those as manuscript reviews. But also, if I don't feel like I'm going to give you enough feedback, if I do a manuscript review and I'm like, okay, this is going to take a lot of work, you probably need some instruction on how to make this work, then I might refer you to somebody like Troy Lambert, who's a plot doctor, and he can actually help you like hone that in. So, that's about the time, like if you feel like you've gone as far as you can and you absolutely do need somebody to help you tune in that book, that's when you might hire an editor to work on that. And then also, you hire an editor because you want to protect your reputation. Negative reviews based on your editor, your editing of your book, they're ugly. And people, there's always a sideline coach. There's always going to be that person who's refereeing from the side, and, oh no, you didn't do this right, or this comma is misplaced, or whatever. People are so picky, and they love editing from the sidelines. There's a couple things I need to like warn you about that. First and foremost, a lot of people that do that grammar like posts, I get hit with these all the time. In fact, you can see a couple titles ago in my YouTube stuff, I titled something with like less, or I think I said less and that it was supposed to be fewer or something. So I crossed it off and put fewer because I thought it was hilarious. People were they were sideline coaching me, but it's fine. I appreciate the sidelines, because honestly, when I'm doing other stuff, I'm not always paying attention to all the rules. But I will say this: a lot of edits, a lot of people that come in and do that, one, don't understand publishing standards. Two, don't consider the author's voice and their specific choices on the way that they have things done in their book. A lot of times this is a style choice for an author when they come in and they choose to do things a certain way. But also, three, It's very subjective. Um, English is an evolving, living, breathing thing. If you don't believe me, talk to a Gen Zer. They're using words that I've never heard before. So it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. Words mean something now that they didn't mean 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago. So remember that when you're reading context and subjectivity. Sometimes people don't know the rules being applied, and an author may have an aversion to commas, and that editor may be like, you need to put a comma there, but the author's like, I don't want any more commas. It happens. Just know and understand that grammatically, it doesn't make or break a novel if a comma or a period or a mistake is made. Um, Authors are always coming to me and saying, Stace, there's a typo. We need to fix it. We'll fix it. But it usually is way after a book has been published and after the author has already been successful in achieving bestseller status. So really it's kind of a thing. It's funny. Don't worry about it. Don't make it the hinge in which you judge your entire success. It's not something that's going to make or break your success. Trust me, I know. I have friends that are very successful authors and loads of mistakes in their novels. They still seem to do just fine. So don't kill yourself over this. But if you want to protect your reputation, get a professional involved, at the very least, for that proofreading stage. All right. So again, not all editors are equal. Make sure you understand and know their reputation, that they have books to their name, that they have testimonials, that they have a clear and concise contract that you can have reviewed by an attorney if you need to, but make sure that they have a contract. There's too many authors or too many editors out there right now that are kind of just doing this word of mouth stuff, and that is not good. So make sure you have a contract. Track record testimonials, I already brought that up. Also a red flag. If they promise you anything like, oh, I promise that after I do this, you're going to be a bestseller, that is something that you should run away screaming from. Okay. No publishing company, no editor, no marketing scheme, no nothing. None of those things should give you a promise to be a bestseller. None of them. If they do, I want you to run away. Run away fast, run away. You know that red flag guy that's on like TikTok and on Instagram Reels, and he's got that big red flag. I want you to imagine him running back and forth. Red flag, if somebody makes any kind of guarantee. Okay. All right. So, what you need to do to hire an editor, I've got a checklist for you. I'm going to put it in the description below. You're welcome to have it. It is free. It is a when to hire an editor and make sure that you're ready, and make sure your manuscript is ready for that editor. So I'm going to put that in the manuscript or in the description. It's yours. It's my gift to you. If you guys have any questions, or again, if you want any more information from me, you can always go to printpro.com, or you can hit me up at editsbystacy.com. I'm at both. I'm rebranding. You can also talk to me and make an appointment for a free consultation on my website as well. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please hit me up and like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Thanks, guys.